on the mic.
Have we just done that one?
Yeah, all good.
Okay, we're good.
So,
Ready.
page 53, Kelly.
Yeah, got it.
Got it. Hey, look, morning afternoon, I'm not quite sure, but anyway, kia ora, Peter, are you there?
Yeah, aheo Māori all.
Yeah, look, good to see you. Look, we're going to take the agenda as read, and perhaps if you could maybe start by just sort of covering off some key points relatively briefly, and then we'll see what sort of questions come out of that as to how in depth we decide to get. Yeah, how's that sound?
Yeah, look, happy to do that, co-chair. Speak to the report and take any questions that people might have. Okay, just aware of the time, so I'll try and go through there. I don't have a presentation, so I'll speak to the report. The first round of community and sector engagement has occurred, including that with Tangata Whenua. We had Wananga with 10 regional groups during the September and December of last year. The report that has arisen from the feedback is currently being analysed, and it has been workshopped with Council on the 14th of March. Councillors will probably be aware of that. So it's currently being in the process of being put up on the website, which will be available to all to access. In terms of two aspects of the freshwater process, there's the governance aspect, which is being worked through by council at the moment in terms of possibility of a freshwater committee, which would, of course, be at the end of the day deal with the governance issues. In terms of the operational aspects, and letters were sent out last Monday, so they may be sitting in trays, hopefully they are, setting up what's called Ngā Tira Matauranga, which is calling for nominations to a technical working group. That group would be supported by technical experts in terms of forming policy and feeding into the regional planning documents, the regional policy statement and the regional plan. And they'd also be remunerated in terms of their time and availing ourselves of their expertise to inform on that process. So I guess just a plea to Te Arawa and the affiliates, we would love to have you on board in terms of being able to become part of that process. It's very much collaborative. And as I say, it'll be supported by technical expertise in terms of being able to develop policies, particularly higher order ones around Te Manawa Te Wai, and Māori freshwater values, including the compulsory one of Mahinga Kai, but also looking at Matauranga Māori and how that would be incorporated into council science monitoring and reporting programs. Current work programs, staff are getting themselves ready for the engagement with the Ngā Tira Matauranga group, but looking to commence second round wānanga in the commencing in June, and I think co-chair Evelyn, we've got Ohaki booked in for the 22nd of June. So that's all been taken care of in terms of the logistics. So staff are continuing to familiarise themselves with the iwi environmental management plans, deeds of settlement, and Te Tiriti claims legislation, and of course with Te Tiriti Whai Mana, and folk will probably be aware that that there's a review process currently being undertaken. We do have an overlap in terms of facilitator. We've got Tiffany Wilson, who's assisting with both of those processes. And I guess a little bit of confusion might be with Te Tiriti Whai Mana. They're also setting up a Ngā Tira Matauranga group. So there are opportunities there, I guess, for cooperation or collaboration, but that's really up to JMA members as to how that might proceed. Just touching briefly on to Plan Change 1, Healthy Rivers Waiora, currently sitting before the Environment Court.
Yep. Hang on, I just got a question. Sorry.
Yep,
Sorry, just
yes.
a question. I just want to make sure I heard you right. Did you say Te Tiriti Whai Mana are setting up what sort of board are they setting up? A Mātauranga Māori?
No.
Yes.
Linda's doing it. We'll just check.
Sorry?
It's engagement process for the review of Te Tiriti Whai Mana, basically.
Oh, okay. It's to do with the review.
Yeah, the review of the vision and strategy statement, co-chair. Yeah. In terms of Healthy Rivers Waiora, Plan Change 1, that's currently sitting before the Environment Court, and there's mediation currently undergoing. But I think there is an expectation that probably it's coming to a point where probably it'll have to go back to court for the court to start making determinations on points that can't be agreed to. So we wait to see what happens there. And look, that's basically the end of the report. I'm more than happy to take questions from the committee.
Thanks, Peter. Right, questions?
Anybody have questions?
Of course, we've been over those steps. Okay, sounds like we're all free to play, Peter.
Good. Well, my appetite is whetted from watching you guys eat your kai, so I think I'll go and do the same thing myself.
That's only our entree you're watching us eat, yeah?
Yeah.
Hey, thanks a lot, Peter. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering, ladies, do you mind if we call a little bit of order to the hui? So I'm a little bit aware that you're giving a presentation and you two are having a conversation over there. So it's a little bit distracting, I think, for everyone. Kia ora.
Okay, I'll move that the report be received, Peter, and Delia's happy to see you. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye, carried.
Kia ora. Okay. Okay, so we're on implementation of national policy statement, and I think we've got a couple of guests. Kia ora. Nau mai haere. There's two there.
Oh, yeah.
There's one here.
I've got two there.
Are these the correct slides? Right, it's coming up. Sorry, oh, are these got to
Waikato, no Brasil, Cotupuna, e Fanal, aqui e Hall, no Brasil. Por portaria, Temanga, Cotu, Toteava, Te Kirikiriroa, Aho e Noho, Iana, Inane, Tumatirong Yamanga, e Rere na o Waikato. Ko João Paulo, Totoinoa, ko Aute Koito, Hutohu, Kaupapa, a Mote Canifera, Aho Rio, Waikato. Inumana, Inareo, Pero, Ragasirama, Tenakoto, Katoa. Yeah, so my name is João Paulo, JP for short. I'm a senior policy advisor at the Waikato Regional Council. I work on the policy implementation team, and I'm the project manager for implementing the national policy statement for highly productive land. As I mentioned, I'm from Brazil. I have been in New Zealand for the past 10 years. Before working at the Waikato Regional Council, I worked at the Department of Conservation and for Matamata District Council. I'll let Hayden introduce himself.
Kia ora tātou. Ko Hayden Jones tōku ingoa. He team leader soil and land science ahau o te Konihera rohe o Waikato. Also, I do whakapapa to Ngāti Kahungunu at Wairoa. But that's a connection I'm still researching.
So we are here today to talk to you about the National Policy Statement for Highly Productive Land. This is an initial meeting. This process is on very early stages. And this is we came here in person to meet you and to talk about this kaupapa. And more important, like to listen to your initial thoughts and any comments you may have. The National Policy Statement for Highly Productive Land became operative on October 2022, and it has the purpose to protect highly productive land for primary production for now and for the future generations. The National Policy Statement has only one objective, which is, it says exactly that, to protect highly productive land for now and for the future. And has a set of 9 policies that are quite directive with an avoid framework. Can you move to the next slide, please? Just before digging into the National Policy Statement, this is a diagram of how the current resource management system works. sorry if this is something you're already familiar about, but just to put you in context, where the National Policy Statement sits. So it sits right underneath the Resource Management Act, and it complements the Resource Management Act. It's a tool that central government usually uses to address matters of national significance or national importance. So they sit right together with the national environmental standards, and the regional policy statement needs to give effect to any national policy statement, as well as the district plans underneath. So as I mentioned before, the national policy statement became operative last October, and there's two key aspects with this national policy statement. First, central government gave regional councils 3 years to map all highly productive land in the region and to notify this map. On the other hand, the national policy statement provides for a transitional definition until this map is not yet operative. So this transitional definition captures all land that is in a rural zone or in a rural production zone, and it's under the land use classification from Manaki Whenua under 1, 2, and 3. So those used to be called high class soil 1, 2, 3. Now they're calling it highly productive land. And so this national policy statement captures all this land. And as I mentioned before, there's a set of policies, and the way that the national policy statement protects highly productive land, it's by preventing urban development to happen within highly productive land. So preventing rezoning for lifestyle, rezoning for any urban kind of development like industrial, residential, and also preventing inappropriate land use, any land use and development. So rezoning, subdivision, and any land use and development. The national policy statement provides clear direction, strong direction to actively involve Waikato Whenua in this process of mapping. Hayden will talk more about the mapping more in the detail. I'll just talk more about the process and this involvement needs to be early, needs to be meaningful. Reason why we are here right now at the beginning of the process. And it needs to capture all levels of decision making, like from Iwi, Hapu, and Whanau. So the purpose of today is our JMA directs us to contact staff as well from Parrot. So we have been in contact with Joe and Nuki. We have had an initial meeting with them, and I'll let Hayden talk first, and then we'll talk about joint working parties and how we want to progress.
Thanks, Jody. Next slide, please.
Sorry, I talked before.
And next one, please.
So can we just go back here? I just sort of partly waiting for one of the.
Yeah, sorry, I spoke ahead of the slides. If you want to go back one, please.
So do you, sorry, did you?
No, I needed just to sort of read.
Okay.
Objective.
So are we aware, do you know how much land would be impacted within the, within our rohe?
Yeah, like on Appendix 1 of your agenda from our report, there's a map that shows all the land use classification 1, 2, and 3 in the region. Yeah. I mean, as part of our engagement, we are on the process of producing.
Yeah.
Thank you, just looking at the map, sorry.
Yes. So yeah, I think I mentioned everything that's on this slide. If you move to the next one, Lynn, please.
So just what does national policy statement pertain? What does it mean by highly productive land? What does that mean?
Yeah. So
What determines highly productive land?
So the basis for that as a starting point is the land use capability classification, classes 1 to 3. It's the whole classification has 8 classes, but the first 3 classes are considered to be the most versatile for a whole range of land uses, and so they've taken those as the starting point for defining highly productive land. Also part of the definition is where that LUC classes 1, 2 and 3 occur on either general rural zone or rural production zone land.
Right, yeah. Right.
In terms of the zoning within the territorial authority areas.
So if somebody decided to sell an acre of land, where they are, say, out in the rural area, and they decided not to farm it and change it into housing or whatever, that's part of called what highly productive land, and it needs to go through all of this definition or something.
If it's been mapped as part of this land use capability classes 1, 2 and 3, that's
Okay.
yeah, in the appendix there's a map there that shows the distribution of the classes 1, 2 and 3 within the region. Yeah, if we could move to the next slide, please. Talk a bit further about what. Yes. So essentially, we're anticipating 4 main steps in terms of the process of mapping highly productive land in the region. And so I just mentioned the first step there is in determining where those LUC classes 1, 2 or 3 coincide with general rural or rural production zones. In the second step, we then look at those areas that have already been identified for future urban development within the next 10 years in strategic planning documents. And so they'd be then taken out. In the third step, the NPS allows regions to consider whether there's any land that has not been mapped as LUC 1, 2 or 3, but is considered to be important for certain high value uses, and in which case if it's identified within the region, then those areas could be included into the definition of highly productive land. And then in the fourth step, having done those first 3 things, the NPS then requires us to draw lines around areas that are dominated by highly productive land. So, you know, for practical purposes, making a clear map that shows areas that are highly productive and areas that are not. The NPS talks about these areas as being large and geographically cohesive. So it's to avoid a very sort of patchwork type map as the end product. And but that does mean, in drawing those areas, drawing those lines around the large and cohesive areas, is that there will be some small pockets of land outside of LUC 1, 2 or 3 included in the highly productive land areas. And on the other side, outside of those areas, there will be small pockets of land that are LUC 1, 2 or 3. But the NPS, that's the way the NPS directs us to essentially undertake the mapping.
I guess the question for me is through the land use charge, land use class thing. You know, if we look at the NPS setting in terms of Te Mana o Te Wai and giving effect to what is sort of a similar mechanism in here that takes into consideration before classifying those, that actually it doesn't impact the water through Te Oranga o Te Tile. So does the MBA or the reforms post that point with the bill being enacted, does that process change? Or is there an opportunity for us to incorporate what are the mechanisms that are currently there to put the tile and the whenua and the wai first? Because I guess once they're classified, once your report goes through, And should none of our whakakainga or planning have made it in any strategic documents at the time of your report, I guess that sort of cuts off that opportunity for them to participate, so I guess. Yeah.
So to answer your first question, the National Policy Statement for Hydroelectric Land was developing accounting for the National Policy Statement for freshwater management and for urban development. So there is a policy that they should work together.
Okay.
There is one clause under the NDS HPL, it's clause 3.10, that it's exceptions for land that could become constrained by any reason, including like
From primary production.
like any constraints from not having enough water or climate change, any drought or anything like that. So that, I mean, it takes
Yes, it
that
doesn't
into
go into-
accountability. But in terms of putting water first, I think this is more focused on the highly productive land itself.
Yeah, I guess for us is.
But this won't override the protections that are in place to give effect to demand or to why. That's probably, I think, your key question.
Yes, that's right, I
Yeah,
guess,
yeah.
to take into consideration, that mapping that is still yet to be done under the MPSFN and now, provide those values for our FNUs, water streams.
Yeah.
I guess before, and I guess the marrying of that too is important.
Yeah. And this classification system is also quite integral to farm environment planning as well, in terms of determining where we need to address particular issues and things like that. But it certainly won't override.
I guess it's just a highly sensitive issue at the moment, given we're trying to, through the reform, sort of work through what reducing limits and modes, nitrogen and phosphorus, to actually in a mapping process to see where there's highly productive, where that can continue.
Yeah.
So I guess,
And to answer to your second question, yes. William, can you please move one or two more slides? On the next one, please, we can come back to this one. Yes. So there are exceptions for multi-land. Or specified multi-land under the Farm Act. So, and there are specific provisions for subdivision and land use. So, for Whakakainga development, if it's on multi-land, the SHPL will not have an effect on it.
I guess all of that option is provided to the owners direct, whether they wish to be included in that classification or not.
Yeah, because I mean, if the land fills the criteria, if it's under the LUC classification,
Yes.
we'll have to map it as high productive
But
land.
then I guess a further like categorization that's actually multi-land.
Yeah.
Still have discretion.
Yeah. Then when they go through the process, when the flood resource consent, they
And they, it's more enabling.
Yeah.
And through the co-chairs, further to what JP was saying in terms of long-term constraints on the land. So the land will still be mapped as highly productive, but if it's subsequently identified that there are long-term constraints relating to availability of water and so forth that JP mentioned, then certain exemptions within the criteria of the NPS would potentially allow land use change to occur in those situations rather than requiring the ongoing primary productive use.
Do you want to go back to the?
I finished with that. I think so. Yeah, perhaps if we just go back to the one with the map. So the map on the left there is just showing the distribution of land use capability classes 1, 2, and 3 within the region. So
Just clarify something. Sorry to interrupt you, but on our map, it's a lot of that is actually yellow, which means it would be at LUC 3. And when I look here, some of that is actually at LUC 1. Yes.
Printed it.
So I just want to clarify that
That's green, right, Dylan?
yeah, most of that to the right, which, well, I'm not quite
I
sure.
would
To the
have thought it
northeast
was
of
three.
Taupo.
Yeah,
The one is usually around here.
Oh, it's actually a different colour
Yes,
coding to the
yeah,
one we've got.
yeah.
Oh, okay, so just, all right, so that is 3.
Yes, yeah, it's just different colours have been used for in the
Printout.
legend here. Yeah, between the two maps, but should be showing the same information there. So we do have some very significant areas
Makes difference.
within the region.
Thank you. I just wondered too about around unsettled land that is yet to be settled, that are still going through a settlement process.
Yes, it is not included. I saw it in L3, I think.
Yeah, I think like there is an exemption for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably that case that they will be mapped as highly productive land, but moving forward, like,
In the MPS, it sets out quite a few criteria around defining specified multi-land. And I think there was mention which relates to land transferred. Yeah, so not sure in terms of settlements in process that there's something that could be explored.
yeah, we need to.
Part of your mapping process is to look at land ownership. You know, what title it's under, that type of thing. That will be part of your mapping.
Well, that comes into the definition of specified multi-land. So that's where the nature of the title is important. So that includes multi-customary title and multi-freehold lands, but it doesn't include general title land owned by Māori.
Because it's
But-
under general.
Yeah, the specified multi-land doesn't directly impact on the mapping of highly productive land. It's more in relation to those certain exemptions under the clauses of the MPS, where if it is specified multi-land, it triggers certain exemptions where subdivision or land use change can occur.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Yes.
And just in the table on the right there, that gives a brief description of each of the land use capability classes. Key thing is that the smaller the number, the more versatile and generally more productive, more capacity to sustain long-term productivity. We have a very small area of class 1 and around 11% regional area in class 2, class 3.
Okay, thank you.
So just to wrap up, if you can move within a couple more slides, please. Yeah, sorry, this slide's a bit dated. In terms of process, we have presented this to council on the 1st of March. And so in order to do the mapping, we'll have to do a plan change process. The NPS HPL only requires for us to produce this map, but we also believe that we need to implement change to the regional policy statement to respond to the NPS HPL. So we plan to have a set of draft provisions around June ready, and a provisional map with all this highly productive land by August. And then we'll start engagement. And then that's the time that we'll come back to you, and that's where we want to, because then the SHPL says that, I mean, we need to involve to the extent that they wish to be involved. And so we want to hear from you, like, how can we facilitate this? We understand that you have a lot happening, competing interests that demands a lot of resource and your attention. So we want to make this as easy as possible. And so, yeah, we perhaps like a joint working party at the staff level, and then they could bring to you any issues that is of concern, but whatever suits you best.
So you'll be communicating with Joe and her team around that, and Joe will flag the board or put any recommendations or call it or that for consideration into the board pack. No, thank you. I think it's a space that we'll have to keep an eye on.
Yeah, there's a lot of different working groups around water at the moment within WLC. Have you considered how to amalgamate those to capitalise on the resourcing of the capability and capacity of our iwi, our partners? Because if you're going to have a working party just for this bunch and then one for this one, they all at the end of the day incorporate the Mamatua. You should talk to your mates around and say, you know, and you guys do a half an hour. I don't know, but instead of our JFA partners trying to house every committee that's going on, surely there's been more capacity going for us.
Yeah.
Get it the other way.
Yeah, for the chairs, like we are assessing and having this conversation with other communities as well.
Good
Um,
things.
It's just it's a little bit challenging because this process they're at different stages.
Yeah,
As
Yeah.
well in part.
And but
Yeah.
we'll do our best to.
as much as possible, because these are all tying into one thing.
Thank you. I think, you know, streamlining, if we can streamline the works. And to be honest with you, regardless of whether or not you're at different stages, you know, it's your time to talk about what you want to talk about.
Yeah.
And then if you can, you know, might be able to identify where that might fit into the Te Manawatu Wai. Granted, it might be at a different stage to where they're at the moment, but it's actually handy to have them in the room because, you know, if there are any questions, they're right there, they can answer it.
Yeah, sure.
But no, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us for the muffins.
Please stay for lunch.
Send your slides out too.
Um,
Send your slides out, it'd be good.
Yeah.
Because those slides where you identify between 1, 2, and 3 of the LUCs, it'd be good for us to have all of those and look at it and understand what slide fits where.
That'd be great.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've just got the implementation, the resolution, implementation of the NPS for highly productive land in the Waikato Regional Policy Statement. Please. Thank you, Delia. Second, Mick. Resolution, I think I'll call for anyone for or against, for? Aye. Carried.
It's that second one, this is proposed plan change 2. Is that proposed plan change 2 capture the NPS?
I'm not sure, sorry, I just get the resolution, but that's it.
That the town would consider to provide initial feedback on the other councils.
Is it?
That's
Looking forward.
so that, yeah, that's the two guys, JP and Hayden, just talked about a few months down the track. They want to come and have a talk to you, so that's just capturing that you guys have a think about how best that will work for you.
That reads that we had provided our initial feedback now.
Well, I think you have given it a little bit.
Should approach council, what is our approach?
Yes, I think you've done that.
So we'll do that through Joe, through the
So
team.
that's a work in progress, to be fair, yeah.
Okay. Do I need to rewrite anything or are you finding this cool? Sweet.
Just, there's only one L in my name, the second L's to come out.
Apologies for that, sorry.
Okay.
She's not stockpiling L's.
So if we could just move on to, and I'll hand it over to you, Stu, if we could just go over the general business and just have a little bit of a corridor around, you know, what this might look like, what our relationship or partnership working together might actually look like in the future.
Well, let's do that together as cabinets, a bit of partnerships, and it's sorry, we're only a small group, so.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I just want to put that on the table, and I actually just want to open up for feedback and comment. Well, we appreciate, and I do believe that we need to be up with the play around Waikato Regional Council and you know, policy change and directions and strategy and things, or, you know, especially planning documents and consent processes, that type of thing that will impact us. I do feel that our meetings are very heavily weighted by Waikato Regional Council business. And I would like to bring some kind of balance to that and look at ways that we can not only looking at that business, but also, you know, why are we here? What are some of the things that we actually think are really important that we would like to work outside of what's going on here? Are there pieces of project work or mahi that we actually think we could really benefit from that? So those are just my whakaro, you know, my thoughts. Are we happy with the way things are kind of going? And yeah, really, I just want to put that on the table.
So, look, my initial response is I really welcome that because, as I've sort of mentioned a few times through the meeting, these 3 or 4 main agenda items we've already spent quite a bit of time on at our council. So I would actually really like to have some stuff from your guys that we could you'd be sort of seeking our feedback and how we can better work together on I guess areas of mutual interest that are going to add value for all of us, you know. So I really welcome that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, being a first-time councillor, and you know, I haven't had the history that probably Stu has, but you know, to me, everything that we've gone over today, and I appreciate it, was a lot of information to share that we've already been through. But I'd rather, you know, as you say, and the chair is actually have something on the agenda that we can work towards that actually achieves to benefit Te Ara, you know, because that's what the partnership is for, is for what I see, and I look at things pretty basically and try to look at things common sensely, that we're here to see what we can do for you, and unless that's put on the agenda, you know, and we go through the process of it, then that won't be achieved. We probably need more from, you know, now that this is our first meeting, is what can we do to build on that relationship, but also achieve what you want as a group.
Yeah, just, you know, to explore the whakaro that's been shared. You know, we spoke about this earlier, that every partnership board, that we had that arrangement that you need to sort of openly talk about issues that concerned us. You know, that sort of worked quite well. I think the key thing for me is reflecting the partnership. I mean, the purpose of this committee is to honour the JMA. That's the objective, but the objective doesn't go sort of any further. And I understand, you know, then the order of our agenda has sort of been just to provide each other with updates. But I think just sort of listening to the presentations today and hearing some of the feedback from Katarina and some of your key staff is how there has been joint advocation in areas that we find we have Waikato Regional Council on our behalf. I think that really sort of shows that, but reflects well that honouring of the partnership. I'd like, I guess, in considering the kaupapa going forward, whether there is a appetite for those issues where we present sort of where they perhaps are kind of not working well, particularly through the reforms. For myself, freshwater and these reforms are sort of a topic I think I'd like to sort of keep going and what's working in to ensure that. But yeah, perhaps working on a joint, so perhaps we have it online for me to discuss a joint agenda together in advance. Could be.
Look, obviously I'm only here temporarily today, but I do co-chair the Te Nehi Nui JMA with Victoria, and we certainly discussed the same issue a month ago, and we've got a bit of an agreement to be a bit more proactive as co-chairs and don't leave it until a week before the village to just come and talk about it. Yeah, and obviously that involves working very closely with staff of both organisations as well. Hey, what's going, what do we need to sort out here? What are the opportunities for value add? Yeah, at the end of the day, the legislation is really just a bottom line. And if we're only seeking to achieve the bottom line, it's
So
not adding value.
3-4 hours of it.
Exactly, yeah. So we can certainly take that message back to Chief.
So, my thesis, please. Yeah, what Delia said about our iwi partnership committee back a year or so ago was a really great idea about talking over one business will or iwi, you know, instead of us trying to talk about it here, talk about it here, talk about it here. For instance, you know, this sort of all we spoke about today concerns the whole of us as iwi, all of it. You know, what I want to see out of our JMAs is making sure that our staff and Tara's staff are actually working together. So it's not Waikato Regional Council centric. It shouldn't be Waikato Regional Council centric, these JMAs. It's about what we can do for each other to ensure that our partnership around the JMA for the river is exactly what it was put up for. If we're missing that mark, Evelyn, then we need to have a corridor with our people at the back here to ensure that the kaupapa that our JMAs were supposed to do is done equally. It's not supposed to be centric WRC. But the workshop, the presentations we had today, yep, all well and good because they are part and parcel at the end of the day of putting some emphasis around our contribution to the Waikato River. But it's a wider picture. It's about every freshwater that we have in our rohe, not just the Waikato River. But our JMAs were supposed to be around what can we do to awhi Tara and the other way around to ensure that the obligations to that claim of the river is on par. So one of the things I said at Waikato, at Maniapoto Waipa, I said, you guys aren't bringing anything to us that tells us what you are achieving to help us reach that goal. Now we can help you achieve those things. That's what we're set here for. That's our job, is to help them achieve their aspirations for that river, from this end to that end. And I don't think we're doing it. And today are good presentations because we've been through it before. But from your perspective, you tell me how this is going to help this JMA with our obligation to the Waikato River. It's all well and good to have people do presentations and that. Look, the strategy that Kevin put up. There was absolutely nothing in that about the Waikato River. So all I'm saying is that between our staff and your staff, we're missing the point.
Yeah, look, we had some good hui in the previous term. Kara presented to us that
that is a great
real-time monitoring
work.
stuff we're doing. That was, from my
That was
perspective,
brilliant.
really informative. Hui
And we can
for
help
us.
you do that. You know, back in the day when Eugene was doing all of this thing on the river and those posts out there that you guys did, that was what we had, you know, that's what it was about, is telling us about that. What can we do? I don't know, is the riverbank, it's the, what do you call it, stop bank that they put at Ohaki? Did that work? If it didn't work, why didn't it work? You know, blah, blah, blah. All I'm saying is that's what we'd like to do. Your pairing strips that you might want to do, are we helping there? That's the goal. Anything else? This is your meeting. This is for you, you know, to sit down and say, we would like to do this, but it's not working. How are you going to help us to do it? And as long as it pertains to the Waikato River,
No, thank you. And really that has been around, you know, why this tournament was put on the table. And it was to, you know, really to discuss that and to kind of not take anything away from anyone, but to ensure that we brought some balance to the table and that, you know, some of the agenda and everything reflected what we call a partnership.
Yeah.
My thoughts were, correct, when I realised that my co-chair was not going to be at this meeting, I asked for a meeting because, and I wanted to reflect the importance of these meetings and ensure that it was just as important to Waikato Regional Council as it was to Te Arawa River Iwi Trust. We had a really good discussion. And one of the things that I said to her was, to Pamela, was around a site visit. I think that your councillors need to leave Hamilton and come down to the to the southernmost part of the district and come and have a look firsthand and get familiarised with yourselves with the area, with the stories, with the corridor and what's going on. I mean, you've got both Tūwhare Tour as well as Tarot affiliates within that area, and it's. I know one year, were you on the bus, Catalina, when they came down?
They came through.
That's right, and we need to do that again. It feels like it's a good time to reset, not to continue doing what we do just because that's what we do and we've got into the habit of it, but to actually reset that and start to frame it up so that it looks like something that we want it to look like. There is a whole lot of mahi that goes on down there. We no longer have the catchment committee. We have no report back on what's happening in that space, where the fund's going into, what mahi is being done. We can, our local people, be able to tap into that funding, and instead of having one lot of funding done here, one lot of work mahi done here, we can kind of multiply that and work more as a catchment rather than in isolation. It's a lot more of the work that for me personally as co-chair would like to see going on. I want us to come back here and be really happy. I want some really good feel-good stories that actually we achieved something.
Exactly.
That's what
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here. I kind of feel like we're getting and it's I kind of feel like we're getting kind of bogged down in a lot of the I guess council processes that we have to go through, and not taking that away. I know we have to go through it, but I think we also need something that will uplift us. How will our staff know what that looks like if we don't lead them in that way? If we don't actually come up with some more strategic plans that actually is more engaging and gets us out having a look at really what's going on and where those needs may lie. Eco-gas, the opening of eco-gas, Geo40, just some of those areas that are kind of, sort of heading down that more sustainable business, or kind of it's really where I want to get my head into as well and look at how can we encourage development. Are we really planning what's going on there, within our zoning? And I understand that some of this is, so we have to make sure that what we're talking about is really between the Waikato River and council mahi.
So
And anything that goes into the Waikato River, all the tributaries, that's
That's
around.
right. Oh, yeah, all the trip. Yeah, no, it is. And the ecosystems within. So
look, I was part of that field trip last.
Yeah. I
and I
was
just
determined to
thinking,
take them down.
Can we combine another of those sort of trips with the regional ones, venue somewhere?
oh, look, that's not a problem. I think really you just have to say, yeah, we're coming. And this is what we want, and allow us to to host, to organise. But there's different, you can't come to us without going past Taupo. You can't get to us by going past Tahuwhawa, which is part of Tarot. So you've got to go through the Tarot Rohe to get down to Tūwhare Tour. For you guys, it's about the planning, and it might be a 2-day trip. But really, and I know that it's going to come down to resourcing, and quite frankly, I'm sick of hearing about resourcing.
Us three are up for it. We can work on our colleagues.
Yeah, it's most important, especially in Maryland. It's it's been a meeting, it's talking, it's having a cup of tea. You know, so.
You get a lot more done. You'd be surprised.
I think even through Madam Chair, what you said is some of those need to be put on the agenda. You know, and so that we can, you know, bite into it and actually get it done. You know, the stuff that's at grassroots. It's the grassroots stuff that's the good stories that actually come out. You know, don't get tied up in policy because, you know, to be honest, 5 months in Waikato Regional Council, it's just been all legislation and policy. You know, workshops, like, you know, probably. Well, Stu's probably used to it, but you know, last month, February. So there's still nothing that, to me, that gets my teeth in, and that's what JMAs are, is that you're getting into the grassroots and being able to say, what can the Waikato Regional Council as a vehicle do for you to get to where you want to go?
Exactly, I want enablers,
Yes,
and
that's
policy
what we're
needs to
doing.
be, and you know, and that be an enabler. And unless you come down, you know, and you have a look firsthand at the area that you're actually writing up that, and I'm not saying that they don't, but I'm just saying, you know, and hear about their aspirations and what it is, where we want to be in 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 years time, then, you know, how do you know? How can you enable that?
But there's no roadblocks from your perspective in terms of how we can give effect to what we're talking about, in terms of the regional council role here.
Sorry, Stu.
There's no roadblocks from your perspective in terms of what the regional council can do to help give effect to what we're talking about here.
You're talking specifically about a site visit?
Well,
Or are you thinking about what we've just seen on the screen, because there's lots of roadblocks up there?
I'm very conscious. Well,
No, not
I
those.
guess
policy, we've got to work with what we've got to work with. But in terms of, I'm just acknowledging your comments that the agenda is somewhat WRC centric weighted, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I'm saying to you,
Heavily weighted.
I'm saying to you, what are the roadblocks that's stopping the agenda from being more balanced from your perspective? Yeah.
Oh, I think we need to have a discussion with our staff.
You need to do that.
But I think the good thing is that we're having this discussion here. Our staff are there, and therefore they're getting the flavour of the discussion. And so there'll be a lot more kōrero going on between them as to what the agenda looks like. And maybe, you know, instead of talking, you know, we're having this discussion here at the table, I think it's a good thing that once we've had our kōrero, that we're going to ask the staff, you know, what do you think of the discussion? How do you think we might be able to work a little bit more closely together and really come up with something that at the end of the day, I want to say I'm really proud of this partnership. You know, and I really feel like we're getting somewhere. And I don't think I could do that at this particular time. I'm not saying that, you know, it's, and I know that you have your own constraints. You know, not long gone through an election before, you know, your cycle is probably every 3 years, depending on, you know, what happens at the end of that 3 years as to how the next 3 years is, whereas we want to look long term. And we want some continuity, you know. So how do we do that? No matter who's sitting around the table, how do we continue to get that continuity and actually get some gains? So, yeah.
If I could just get correction, perhaps. So I know at a technical level, the staff do engage on a regular basis, and there's obviously room that we can do things differently. What I'm hearing is that the high-level policy stuff is important, but it shouldn't dominate. You want a lot more practical, longitudinal sort of work that's insight into the work that's going on in the catchment, and also recognise that we no longer have those catchment committee structures that Phil referred to. And some years ago, we used to report regularly into this forum, and I think about the work that was going on at the Whirinaki Arm and how we had some quite practical engagement on those sort of really meaningful topics. There's no reason why this can't happen again, and that we can't constitute the forum so that it reflects the priority projects that we're involved in, and that will be of importance for Arawa, for Carrot, and that we develop those up jointly at a technical level with Jo and her team, and present that draft agenda in plenty of time prior to
go to this forum, if you wanted to engage with governors in a virtual agenda setting meeting on the basis of what we present, the topics and the concepts that we present, then you could fine tune it down and we would then develop the content and material accordingly. So we absolutely want to make it a meaningful and valuable experience, and take on board also the comments, Chair Evelyn, about I think to be a long-term sustainable forum, that because our cycles cross over. You do your trustee elections every 3 years. It's 18 months into our election period, so we're out of sync, and so you get loss of continuity. So it's very important that we create a structure that is sustainable regardless of those 18-month transition periods for both parties. We've got a clear action there, if you agree with that. And with Joe and your team, if you're amenable to that, Joe, and put together some format that reflects what I believe we've been today.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Neville. Yeah.
That's great. And I think that we should work on that site visit and try and get a site visit and, as soon as practically possible, especially before the next hui, and we start working on that next agenda.
Because this is what, every,
Possibly, so the next one is in September. Is it
so
September?
you see that he was a time to start with,
And we could get perhaps the Upper Waikato and or total zone, catchment zone manager to perhaps be part of that.
Yes.
Update in the absence of the catchment committee.
It's a team.
He will.
Oh, is that? Yeah.
Yes, he's there. And Grant.
Cool.
Excellent. So I think that we can, with that done, I think we can call our going to.
We have a country up there.
Yes,
We can do
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, no, that's, yeah, so. Okay, so thank you, everyone. Oh, look, and I was a bit remiss in congratulating everyone around the board who has been reappointed, and it's good to see familiar faces around and new faces, because that's really important too. So, no meeting.
Nui tatou.
Aye.
Uni here, uni here.
Kia wātea, kia mama, te
Tēnā
mākau,
hau,
te tinana, te inaro, i te ara takatu. Koe rā e onga, te whakarangia, i ki runga, kia tina, tina, hauie, dai. Kia ora. So the karakia head over the muffins, is that enough for lunch?
I sent you that email with